What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Opening Line. Today is Tuesday, June 15th, and it is U.S. Open week. We are going to be at Torrey Pines this week, and this is going to be a little bit fun because this is, of course, we already know from having the Farmers Insurance Open every week, and now we get to have a major test. Unfortunately, Tiger Woods is not in attendance to give us one of the greatest stories of all time, but hey, who knows what's going to happen this week? We've had a bunch of unknown stuff happen this year already. Maybe we'll get another storyline like that this week. Frank, how's it going?
So you're taking Phil, is what you're telling me?
No, I am known as the Phil Whisperer.
Yeah,
you know that.
Yeah.
But no, I am not taking Phil to win this week. Although if that happens, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a movie written about that, about how he completes the Grand Slam in his hometown after winning the PGA Championship. So
yeah, rightfully so. Hopefully, this major is as exciting as the last one. We know the course is really good. Torrey Pines is great. It's long, it's tough, it's challenging. We'll get to that, but yeah, I'm excited for the week. This is obviously a really good field. With the exception of the people that kind of a lot of guys that played their way in and all that stuff. So if you look at relatively, right, the size of the field that can win the event, it's quite small relative to a lot of the other majors, right?
Yeah, definitely, because you're having a bunch of the open qualifiers because you go through local qualifying, sectional qualifying, and you'll end up getting 30 or 40 guys with 156 players that are guys that really don't even have a chance to get a top 10 in the event. So you're really looking at about a field of about 105 to 115 in terms of betting for guys that can actually have a chance to win or finish top 10. So it narrows down the focus a little bit, but that makes it mean that the odds are a little bit less to win, right? Because you kind of throw out 40 players. Whereas, if you're playing PGA Championship, it was 156 and you had 20 club pros, but that means you're left with 136, right? Which is an extra, maybe 20 golfers with a chance to win in that week.
Yeah, for sure. And now we have a particular course, right, that you have nailed down pretty much to a science. You kind of probably can close your eyes and click around on a website and pick the winner here at Torrey Pines, the way you've run here the last few years.
Yeah, Torrey Pines has been my second best golf course behind Waialae Country Club, which hosts the Sony Open. So I track them. I think it's going to be similar for this week. So what we got for the golf course here is you're going to need distance this week. Long golf course here. So when they do the Farmers, it's par 72, like 7,600 yards long. They're going to play it as a par 71 here. They're changing one of the par 5s in the front to play as a par 4, the sixth hole. But this is, it's going to be 515 yards. So par is irrelevant at that point, whether it's a 4 or 5. It's just going to play really long. You only have one really short par 4, and that's the second hole, which is 390 yards, 380 yards. The rest of them are all going to be, 430 yards or longer. And the one difference we're going to see here from the Farmers till now is when they're playing here in February, the fairways usually aren't that firm. So it means the course plays really long. But the thing is, the guys didn't hit many fairways there. It was about 12% less than a normal tour event in February. Now that the fairways are going to be firm, it's a lot. There's pretty much the same width. It's a lot harder to hit firm fairways than there are soft.
Sure.
So you're going to have even more fairways missed, and you have the rough, which is 1 inch for the small primary cut or first cut or primary cut. Then it's 3 inches for the first cut, 5 inches. If you get like 7-8 yards of the fairway, you're sitting 5 inches of rough, and it's Kikuyu rough that's very, very grainy with a little bit of overseed in there. And it's just nasty. I mean, they haven't allowed cart traffic on the golf course in 2 months. They've been doing cart path only, so carts don't drive on it. So this has really been able to allow the grass to grow. They've had pretty good weather for growth. And I'm sure you've seen some videos, whether on, Golf Channel or on social media, that the rough's nasty. So and if you're going to be missing fairways on longer par 4s, even if you're hitting, 310 yards, 320 yards, you're still going to have to hit, a 150-yard shot into a green. And it's going to be hard to hit that to the green. And if you do, the greens are small and firm, and it's going to be hard to hold the greens. So with everybody kind of missing the fairways, you're going to want to kind of not look at the guys who hit it short this week because they can't keep it in the fairway either. You're going to want to get the guys that can bomb the ball. There is a preference off the tee to guys who fade the ball as well, left to right ball flight. We've talked about this in the past. That's why I've seen some guys like Leishman play well here, Woodland play here, Rahm play well here. Guys who can play that fade. Heck, that's why Tiger played well. Tiger played that fade, right? Just because that left to right ball flight is really suited on a lot of tee shots here. So we don't have guys under pressure. You don't want them comfortable, and they can go to their go-to left to right shot. That's a big deal.
And just in a general stance, that shot also has a better chance to hold the fairway as well, right? And that when you're running into thick rough, and even when they have the regular event here, the Farmers Insurance Open, that rough can get thick relative to a regular PGA Tour event, and it can be difficult to hold greens when you're not in the fairway. And like you said, these fairways are so tight to begin with, and we've sort of seen this play out. Longer hitters, left to right ball flights. That sort of thing. I think that will only amplify this week compared to the normal event, right? And similar to the last U.S. Open, which Bryson won, he wasn't hitting, he was hitting the ball well off the tee, obviously, he always does. But he was just hitting it further than everyone else, right? And like able to get it on the green because he had more swing speed through that rough, right? So it's like kind of a double-edged sword in that the longer hitters are stronger and swing harder. They also get down through the rough easier, and it kind of just kind of escalates from there. We have a long course with thick rough. And if, you have a guy that's a shorter hitter that hits 52% of the fairways or even 57% of the fairways, and you have a longer hitter hitting 50% of the fairways, that difference isn't enough to make up for the fact that these guys can get down through the rough and some other guys maybe can't.
Yeah, I think the winner this week can hit less than half the fairways. I mean, Bryson did last year, the U.S. Open, didn't hit 50%. Just based on the way the course sets up, I don't think the winner is going to hit 50%. It's going to be a bomber. But one thing to note with the distance here is it plays even longer than a normal tour course because, one, we're right here at sea level, and you have the marine layer and fog early in the morning. So when you're playing, like in the morning tee off, sure, the greens are going to be pure in the morning, but the ball just doesn't go anywhere. Literally, you may have a 150-yard shot that you normally think, okay, it's 150. You're going to have to play it like 160, 165 because of how heavy the air is at that time of day. And the fact that you're at sea level, whereas every other weekend tour, you're either slightly above sea level or you're in perfect conditions and not having to deal with, marine layer or fog coming in. So when we're talking 7,600 yards, par 71, it plays even longer, even though you have the firm fairways. And then two things to note around the green is guys are going to miss a lot of greens here because, one, you're not going to hit a lot of fairways. Two, the greens are firm and smaller with a lot of undulations. So you're going to have more chance to get up and down on the green. So chipping is going to be the utmost importance. Putting will not be as important as you would think in this situation. On a normal course, you would think, okay, they're going to miss greens. They're going to have to make a lot of short putts, right? A lot of 6-footers, 8-footers apart. The greens here are Paulie greens, which means they get a little bumpy in the afternoon, and it takes a little bit type of different putter. We see a lot of guys who kind of have a more aggressive putting stroke. We've seen guys like Brandt Snedeker, Jason Day here have really good success on Paulie greens because they're kind of aggressive putters. They're not guys who are dying the ball in the hole. Really tend to struggle on Paulie greens because in the afternoon the flower heads on the greens literally grow up. You'll see it in the camera view, and you'll see the ball bounce like Plinko, like you're playing Price is Right. So what that means is guys are going to make less putts. It's one of the hardest courses on tour to make putts inside 10 feet. What that means is guys are going to be missing 6-footers, 7-footers, or pars. They're going to be 3-putting a bunch because they'll have 40 feet, leave it 5 feet away, think they hit a good putt, hits a little bump, and all of a sudden doesn't go in. Whenever you have that takes a little bit of the skill out of putting and puts a higher emphasis on guys who can hit the ball well and guys who can chip it closer to the hole. Guys who are able to chip it to 3 feet instead of 7 feet. That is a massive difference this week because 3 feet's a tap-in, 7-footer, you got to deal with the Paulie greens, especially if you're in contention on Saturday and Sunday, having to deal with it in the afternoon.
In chipping to the right areas in the green, right? 3 feet up the hill compared to 5 feet down the hill is just massively different because, like you said, you can hit the ball through those flower heads, through those little bit of bumpy greens to keep the ball in line, and keep it, in the hole really, as opposed to having to play break, take break. They can take some break out of it, hit it harder, and it's kind of just double-edged sword. Where, it's going to be. I'm glad you harped on the greens there. It's the POA greens really just add a variance, to putting that is basically random, right? Like it's already so random and it's hard to predict putting. And we know that, but it's all, that just adds more to it, which kind of begs the question of these guys will be more condensed. We've seen this at the Farmers Insurance Open. It's going to be especially true with how fast the greens are going to be this week. You're going to see short putts missed, right? There's going to be 3-footers missed. There's going to be 3.5 footers missed. There's going to be, a lot of 4 or 5 footers missed that you think guys should be making for par, and they're just not going to make it. So, I'm glad you touched on that. Around the green had a huge importance this week. Driving distance and putting, not so much. Approach play is always important. It's very important this week. But it's going to be a little bit difficult in general just to hold greens because, half the time you're going to be coming out of really thick rough.
Yeah, definitely. So let's hop into the outrights here. I only bet one player. I see that you bet more than that. So I'll let you go first here. I don't know how many you're talking about, 1 or 2 of them, but I'll let you jump in your first one here.
Yeah, I took Paul Casey 47-1. We know ball striking sort of gets around here. He's a great driver of the ball. He's accurate and long off the tee, longer than you would expect for a guy of his stature, right? Like not an overly big guy. He can work the ball both ways. And like I said, ball striking kind of king around here. And the one thing to worry about with Paul Casey is the putting generally, right? Like the putting is always not so good throughout his career. But he's been about average to slightly above average in the 2021 season. Over his last 5 events, he's gained like something like 25 strokes on approach. Like I said, long enough, accurate enough off the tee, and the short game's pretty good. Last 5 events, 5 strokes gained and chipping. And we haven't seen him a whole lot. He's been playing more of the bigger events, but 4th at the PGA, really quietly 4th, 21st at Valspar, 26th at the Masters, 5th at the Players, 10th at Arnold Palmer, 5th at the Pro-Am, and 8th at Amex. So playing great golf, 47-1 at a course like this that I'm sure he knows well, that he's played a lot. I think this is a good course for a guy like Paul Casey up there at 47-1.
Yeah, I have. I only played 1 outright so far because what I typically do for major weeks is we get the thing called the drift effect. What that is by the time Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon hits, you'll see a lot of shifting in odds, especially in different sports books, because they're trying to manage the liability that they have. Major weeks are their biggest bet weeks of the year. Typically, Masters and U.S. Open are the 2 biggest, and we see the drift even larger for the Masters week, where basically they're going to shift players' odds because they're going to get pounded with so much action on certain players, especially popular players, that you'll see some of the quote-unquote unpopular guys drift back. A guy who may be 20-1 may all of a sudden be 28-1, 30-1 on a Wednesday. And there's no real reason why he was moved back in terms of his play. It's just they needed to put that number out there to try to balance their liability a little bit and hoping to get some action on that player. And a lot of times that creates value. So typically I don't play a ton of outrights early in the week, Monday, Tuesday of major week. Also, it's because the odds have been out there for, months already on futures markets. So they're kind of already panned out. But the one player that did stick out to me was I got 55-1 on Will Zalatoris on Bookmaker yesterday. And I like that. There's a pretty good edge on that one. I think he should be about 35-1 in this field. So I'd be comfortable betting that down to about 40-1 here. If you wanted to still place that. Zalatoris is just a great fit here. Now, sure, he hasn't won on the PGA Tour, but he pretty much is the same mold as Colin Morikawa, right? He absolute elite iron player, and we saw Morikawa win the PGA last year, in California. And I think you can do this kind of the same thing can happen here, right? Zalatoris played well at last year's U.S. Open, played well at Torrey here in February because he is long enough off the tee. He's 17th in the field in driving distance. But he's also
way further than you think he does.
For a small guy, way further, right? And then he's also second in approach shots. And his main weakness, like Morikawa, is putting. So this is kind of the perfect storm here because he hits it long enough to be out there. He hits it, good enough, accurate enough off the tee. Everyone's going to miss fairways, but he hits it good enough and long enough. And then he's the best iron player. So when he does hit the fairway, should be in good shape, right, to be able to attack, right? Hit it high and hold those greens, whereas other players may not be as good of iron players. So 55-1 seems really high for a guy who, was in contention here, earlier in the year and, finished high at the US Open. I think we're getting this number because he hasn't won yet. But, if Zalatoris won early in the year, this number would be 25-1, I think.
Yeah, and the putting stroke has looked better recently from the more recent events that I've seen him play. It does look like he's making more putts as well, which is good to see regardless, because if he's we sort of say this more Morikawa, like just gain some level of strokes putting and you win. You right, like and you're going a lot.
And he has said in press conferences that he actually prefers putting on Poa and greens. So there's not many players that say that, so that's
Sure.
that's also a little something to take into consideration here.
And then you'll, like you said, you'll have a few more outright. Well, you anticipate to have a few more outrights as we get going here.
Yeah, I should have a few more posted on Wednesday. There was one player I almost fired on. I don't want to mention his name, so his odds don't get boosted around. But there was one player where I was right on the edge of betting, and like if I had to bet yesterday on Monday with him, I would have bet that. But I think there's a chance we might get 1 or 2 points higher on that player, or might see a bigger shift in some of the other players that I'm going to want to wait and see which way the market moves on them. So let's hop into your next bet then.
Yeah, one more. I'll give you one more because I got a bunch out there. Charley Hoffman, 90-1. This guy that I've just been harping on for a long time. Surprisingly so. Maybe another guy you wouldn't expect. He, over his last 20 events, he's about 10 yards longer on average than the standard PGA Tour player off the tee. That's quite good. The fairways, aren't bad. His driving accuracy is fine. It's slightly below average, but we don't really care, right? Like, we want the guys going to hit it a little bit longer. I like that in Charley Hoffman, but the main takeaway from him is he's one of the best iron players in the field and has been for the last couple months. He's missed one cut since February. That was at Waste Management. I think that's something like 12 or so or 13 or so in a row since then. 57th at Memorial, which makes me kind of nervous, and maybe why I'm getting a little bit of a better price, because he lost 5 strokes around the green, which is just, even for him, is pathetic, right? But he hasn't been particularly great around the green. The rest of the game, though, is there, and it's really good. So I'm willing to take a little bit of a hit because he's 90-1. I think he should be much closer, 60-1 or something like that in this field. And I think this is a guy that we have continued to have value on, and hopefully, in your case, maybe this number will drift a little bit upwards of 100-1. That's just a lot for a guy that's finished second, third, a lot of top 10s in there, a lot of top 20s in there. If he can just somehow get the chipping right this week, and maybe it goes, maybe a little bit of luck on his side, maybe he chips in or something every now and again. You kind of need that at times to win a major like this. The rest of the game is there. He's gaining strokes off the tee, a lot of strokes off the tee, a lot of strokes on approach, like I mentioned, a lot of strokes putting. If he can just figure out the chipping, I think at 91, there's some value there.
All right, let's hop into some of the finishing position props here. So in major weeks, they have a lot of top 20s, top 30s, top 40s. So we'll toss out a couple here. You want to go first? Or you want me to go first, Frank?
Go ahead, you got it.
All right, I'm going to hop into the first one. It's going to be a top 30 bet here. Tony Finau at minus 150. He's between 150 and 175 on the books. All those numbers are okay to bet. Obviously, bet at the 150. That's available at a couple shops right now. This is one where it's a great convergence of course fit and Finau's, performance in majors, right? So Finau, in his last 20 majors, he's finished 13 times in the top 30. In his last 13 majors, 9 of those have been in the top 30. And if we look at his form at Torrey Pines, he's played here 6 times. He's finished top 24 all 6 times. His game fits the course perfectly. He hits it long off the tee. He hits it a mile in the air with his irons, which helps hitting into the greens and landing a little softer. And he also is good with his irons, right? He's 14th in the field in approach. And he's also 5th around the greens. His only weakness is putting, where he's 84th in the field, and putting doesn't matter as much. We've seen him he tends to play much better on the West Coast than what he does on the East Coast. And this is just a really good fit for a guy here. I think this number should be maybe 230, 240. Which I know sounds high, but we have a guy that really doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and that's what you need in the U.S. Open.
Yeah, I like Finau. I mean, if you're looking for a guy that can kind of get his first real win in his first major, it's like it seems like he's going to do it somewhere where length and strength matters, and he has really soft hands around the greens. He just really can't putt, but this is a great fit for him, right? Yeah,
and this number I think is going to move probably to minus 200. Because we saw a ton of steam in the outright market. I don't know if you saw us yesterday, but Finau came out at like 35-1. He was bet down to like 20 to 22-1 in a lot of books. Everybody's on Finau to win. I don't necessarily know if he's going to win this week, but I'd rather get my exposure to Finau in a little bit other way. And I think this is the best way to get exposure to him this week. Is going to be the top 30.
Yeah, the best number I can find out now on him is like 24-1. And most of the guys around him, like you said, are better than this 150 number. So, yeah, I'm with you here.
All right. You want to toss out your first finish position prop?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Kokrak, top 40 at about a coins flip chance. I mean, he's hit this at something like 7 or 8 of his last 11 events. He won the last event that he played in Charles Schwab. Longer hitter, right hand, accurate off the tee. Really good approach player, strong enough to get through this rough. And the thing with Kokrak is, for being a bigger guy, yeah, the chipping's not so great around the greens, but he can putt it, man. Like, he's a very good putter. Kind of like you said, more of a pop stroke, kind of gets balls aggressively to the hole. Gained 5.5 strokes putting at Charles Schwab, gained 4.2 strokes at the PGA at another course where there weren't a lot of putts made, right? Like, there weren't a lot of ability to sort of, gain strokes on the green. And Kokrak went and did that. So, we know he's going to gain strokes off the tee. We know he's going to gain strokes on approach. I don't want to say we know he's going to gain strokes putting because it's so random, but he has done so pretty well recently. And like I said, 8 of the last 11, and we're getting him, at a coin flip here at a top 40. I don't mind the shot here.
Yep. My next one's going to be a top 40 here. It's going to be Hideki Matsuyama at -162. It's pretty much sitting up between 62 and 175 at all the books. Those are all good numbers to bet there. This is another one that I think should be -230, -240. This is one where in his last 32 majors, Frank, how many times do you think he's finished in the top 40?
Did you say 32?
How many times in his last 32 majors has he finished in the top 40?
If I honestly had to guess, I would say like 25.
27. So he's looking at 27-5 is his record at top 40 in majors. You have a guy who feels a heck of a lot more comfortable in majors now after winning at Augusta, right? Pressure's, off. And we're talking about guys who, course fit. Hideki can hit a high cut off the tee. Hideki hits his approach shots a mile in the air. When we talk about, we didn't really mention earlier, but at apex height, which is how high you can hit your ball into the green, is a big help here. That's why we saw guys like Jason Day and Tiger Woods play well as well, or Leishman. Those guys hit it a mile in the air. The harder you can hit it, the softer you can get it to come down on the green, especially when it's firm, is going to help, or even out of the rough. And Hideki is one of the highest ball flights on tour there as well, and just a really, really good fit for the course because guess what? His weakness in his game is putting. He's 127th in the field in putting, but guess what? We don't need putting as much this week, so I think it's a good fit for Hideki. Even though the juice is up there -162, this is one where you're not looking at the juice. You're looking what are the odds based on that juice, and the odds are a lot better than what 162 implies.
And a guy that tends to play well in tougher fields, like Finau, your other guy Finau also reminds me of that. Is like they go to some of these like shittier events and they don't play as well, but when you put them up against some elite players, they're kind of in it.
Because the pressure's not there to make birdie every hole.
Yeah.
And those guys are not good putters, right? You feel like I keep it at the 8 feet, I got to make these putts. Whereas like majors, you're like, okay, let me just keep making a bunch of pars and keep shooting between like 70 and 75 every day. And before you know it, you finish 12th.
Sure. Yeah, I'm with you there.
You want to talk about your other one?
Yeah, one more. I'm going to take Kevin Streelman, top 40, as well at a nice +130 number here. He's hit this in, 6 of his last 7? I think he's been playing great recently. The short game is average, right? He's like about an average putter, average around the green. He's not really going to blow you away. But for his career, he's incredible ball striker, right? And we're getting a field where there's a decent chunk of guys that just really don't have a chance to get inside of this top 40. Yeah, the cut's probably a little harder to make, right? Like to get in the top 20 or top 10 market or something like that is going to be a lot tougher for a guy like Streelman, but there's a really good chance he makes the cut. He's only missed 1 or 2 for the 2021 season, I believe. And he's finished 13th at Memorial, kind of a similar, tough around the green, tough rough course. 20th at Charles Schwab, 8th at the PGA, obviously an elite course, and he kind of had a chance on Sunday before fading, and 26th at Wells Fargo. So his last 4 events have been incredibly good. He's been inside of this, like I said, 6 of his last 7 events. Yeah, top 30 or top 40 at +130. I don't mind it here for an elite ball striker so far on the PGA Tour.
All right, let's hop in to some head-to-heads there. Head-to-heads on some offshore books haven't fully posted yet. They usually will post Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, so we'll bet those there. I did bet a couple matchups on FanDuel and DraftKings because I wanted to get ahead of some market movement because there's going to be a shift based on some player news. And I think there's just some numbers that are off, and I didn't want to see those move before I compared them to offshore numbers. So I typically have a ton of matchups up there. I do have other finish missing bets as well. So does Frank.
You also have the day-to-day matchups too, right? The round.
All single round matchups, and then of course everyone's favorite, the over-under score props, which I think
Yeah.
I've been hitting at like 85% for the last like 2 years. So based
You want
on
to explain a couple of the, like, how that'll work for folks watching that might want to get in on that day to day?
Yeah, sure. So typically, books will post the single round matchups the night before. So Wednesday they'll post them for Thursday. Thursday night they'll post them for Friday. That just to me the score for that day for those players. So I'll typically have maybe 2 or 3 matchups each day for that. Then certain books will also post over unders for scores. FanDuel is the biggest legal book that has it out there. Usually, they'll usually have somewhere between 15 and 20 players up for that. DraftKings will have maybe 5 or 6 of the top players for over/under scores. Then you have a couple offshores sometimes offer those as well, or even some people's like local books as well. So I'll go ahead and post those numbers there whenever we see value. Typically, we'll get 1 or 2 of the rounds where we'll get a lot of value, and I'll play a bunch. Other rounds you may not. It just depends on how I see the course playing, how I see pin locations, and then how you see certain players playing. You're not necessarily playing blind overs or blind unders. Sometimes it's picking a certain player based on how I'm, seeing them playing or seeing how their swing is going. Doesn't, look like it's going to hold up in the next round or something like that.
Yeah, and at times you've had instances where, I would say probably like twice a year, maybe you've seen instances where there's a lot of wind forecasted and the scores aren't really adjusted yet. In the night before, you'll kind of say, hey, heads up with this, or play a bunch of unders or overs in the situation, or maybe there was some rain coming in, or you found out that they're watering the greens and that sort of thing, where I don't want to say you play them blind, but you play a number of guys at a certain number.
I mean, there was times where I was playing 15 or 20 guys on an over, and then they would go like 13-2, 14-1, and that's just one where you're on the right side because 3 or 4 hours later after you bet, the numbers move 2 shots, which is massive if you're talking about golf scores. So it's not like it's moving 2 points in a basketball game. 2 points in golf is or 2 strokes in golf is massive.
Huge.
So,
in one round especially.
So let me talk about the one matchup. Biggest edge you can find on FanDuel. It's Jon Rahm minus 162 over Jordan Spieth. This is going to be my largest edge of the week. I'm assuming by a fairly large margin. This is one that should be probably close to 290, 295 on the edge here. Winning this matchup a little under 75% of the time. We have Jon Rahm, who obviously had to withdraw from the final round of Memorial because he tested positive for COVID. He's all cleared from that, tested all negative, so he's all good to go there. He's just been playing amazing over the last couple of years. In good form, obviously, after the Memorial. And he plays great at Torrey because guess what? He hits a fade off the tee. He hits it long off the tee. Hits it high. Can hit it high with the irons. Good iron player and good chipping around the green. Right.
Yeah.
The only thing sometimes he doesn't do well is putt, but that's okay. He's had great record here at the Farmers Insurance Open, finishing. He's had a win, a second, a fifth, a seventh, and a 29th place finish in his 5 starts here. And he's going up against Jordan Spieth. Now, you're thinking, well, Spieth's kind of back. He's been playing really good, right? You have to realize that 1, this course is a terrible fit for Jordan Spieth, and 2, he's injured. He's got a sprained ankle. He fell while carrying his bag a couple days ago and was limping around, during the practice rounds the last 2 days. So we have a guy who's not at 100%, playing on a course that does not fit him. So we've seen him play the Farmers Insurance Open a ton here in the past, and I'm just pulling up his record. So the 5 so if you just look at some of his record, he's gone 55th, 35th, miscut, 19th, miscut. And this is, those 2 missed cuts in a 19th were when Spieth was at the top of his game near like at number 1 in the world, where he wasn't missing cuts like almost anywhere on tour. He missed the cut twice and finished 19th. That just means that this is a course that you get a large enough sample like that 5-6 times. It's just a course that doesn't suit his game because guess what? We know he's inaccurate off the tee, but he's not the longest guy off the tee. He's going to miss fairways, and he's going to miss fairways by a wide margin. And you get more than like 6-7 yards off the fairways, you're in deep shit here because you're going to be in the 5-inch rough that you can't get the ball to the green, right? Spieth's misses are not 3 yards off the fairway or, it's firm and it's running through. They're wild misses, and wild misses are punished on this golf course. And, that's going to, other thing is one of his biggest, edges is putting, right? You get him on Poana greens, takes a little bit of the edge of putting. Sure, he's a good chipper, but when your edge or, you have a little bit of, you can get unlucky on some putts, it kind of takes a little bit of his edge off putting. Rahm minus 162. This is a big edge. I literally put as much as I possibly could on it that they allowed me at FanDuel. This is definitely a bet. We'll see if offshore decides to open this number anywhere, but I wanted to get down before they had the chance to.
And just for reference, is that number hanging out still? Have you checked it?
I have not checked. That was bet.
But I'm sure you're good to play it wherever it's at.
Literally my number for that's minus 290, which is 74% chance of winning. So that should let you know there's a pretty big edge because minus 162 is like what 62%. So
yeah,
that's a 14% difference in win probability, which is massive when we're talking about betting because typically we're dealing with like 3, 4, 5% difference, not 14%. So this is good to bet all the way up into the 200s.
So yeah, I know we chatted about it a little bit earlier before the head-to-head there. Tell people what we got going on for the week, what you'll anticipate going forward. I don't have any matchups yet, but it's not because lack of trying. There's just a lot of them, and I just hadn't had time this morning to get through them. So I will post the head-to-heads. What do you have going on for the rest of the week here?
Yeah, so already up there, I got my one outright. I'll have the other outrights up there on Wednesday. I want to see a little bit of drift, either probably in the Wednesday afternoon there or Wednesday evening. Tournament head-to-heads. I have 2 posted now. Both of them are against Spieth, one on DraftKings, one on FanDuel. That should give you a hint as what my other matchup is because there's only one against Spieth on DraftKings. Sure. And I'll have all the offshore ones up this evening, Tuesday night. There's probably be about 150 offshore matchups usually posted. One of the offshores already posted about 50, but Bookmaker tends to have about another 100 out there on top of that. So once I'm able to go through all 150 of those, we'll have those posted. And those pretty much cover any of your betting options you may have because people have all kinds of the different offshore sites that they can be betting on. You can find those matchups on one of those sites usually. It just seems that Bookmaker has all of them on there together. So we'll have those up Tuesday night. And I typically didn't want to bet on smaller offshores ahead of time because those numbers will move. If I place a bet on somebody, they'll move at 15, 20 cents on a head-to-head. So I don't want to ruin the market off of a small limit. I'll wait till Bookmaker posts and gets big limits so the market's kind of not ruined there. And then top 30's already up there on the sheet for both of us. I'll have single first-round head-to-heads up posted on Wednesday evening. And then if there's any score props, will be up there as well. And then I'll let you kind of talk about what we have on the fantasy side.
Yeah, we do a DFS show every day or every week covering the DraftKings slate as well. Kind of a nice parallel to this because, a lot of the same guys we're talking about here, we'll talk about there in terms of, value on that side. So if you guys do play fantasy, check us out on Elite Fantasy. The other thing with this is, I know a lot of folks watching on Periscope and all that. We also have YouTube and Twitch going if that's easier for you all to watch on your phones or whatever. I know YouTube, a lot of people are asking about just listening. If you're watching on YouTube, you can most times you can click your phone off and listen to it as opposed to looking at our ugly mugs, watching us ramble. You can just, get a quick listen in there. So if you are watching on Periscope, something like that, and you want to switch to one of those outlets, you can do that as well.
Yep. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in for another edition of the Opening Line PGA Edition, and let's make some cash this week.
See ya.